Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Talk to your specialist about Botox Cosmetic, Anabotulinum Toxin A, because Botox Cosmetic Day is back on November 20th. For one day only, buy one $50 gift card, get one free, while supplies last. It gets better because it's not just one day of celebration, but the whole month of November. Refer a friend to Ali, and you'll both get $50 off a Botox Cosmetic treatment. Plus, if you register and get treated during November 1st to 30th, you have the chance to win $10,000. For prescribing information and box warning, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300. No purchase necessary for sweepstakes entry. Treatment must occur by 12/6. For full official rules, offer terms and conditions, and to join Ali, visit BotoxCosmeticDay.com.
How about some fresh out of the oven gingerbread, bright snowdrop, fresh Iowa pine, and cool peppermint to put you in the holiday cleaning spirit? Made with goodness, not a lot of nonsense. Mrs. Meyer's. See what good can grow. Visit mrsmeyers.com today.
I don't remember the details of this, but I feel like I called my brother just sort of to catch up. And it was coincidentally, he had just found out, someone had just called him and said, that Dad's dead. And then it came out that he killed his partner, Alana, and their one dog.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Runnebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance obsessioner. I don't like saying abuser, so I prefer to say I had an obsession with substances, if that makes any sense. Well, hey, welcome to another episode. This one is it's kind of another doozy here. This one is with my friend Andrea Schwam, and I heard her story originally back, maybe a year ago or so on the amazing podcast, This Is Actually Happening. And so I reached out to her because I thought her story was fascinating and I'd love to have her on the show. Andrea is kind of a fascinating lady. She was just recently diagnosed with autism and ADHD, but that's not really what we're going to talk about here, but that's part of her story. Part of her story was her childhood growing up and stuff too, and her losing a mother to cancer when she was a teen. And so, that's all stuff that maybe we can relate to or not. But what's really incredible about Andrea is that her father got into a new relationship and ultimately took his own life and that of his partner. And it wasn't really in an act of violence, if that makes any sense. She'll explain. Thanks again, and shout out to This Is Actually Happening and to Ellie from Trauma Bonded Podcast and T from Trauma Bonded Podcast as well. So thank you all. And here, without further ado, is Andrea.
So I grew up on Vancouver Island, so in Victoria, and my childhood, yes, that was a long time ago now. So in a nutshell, I had a pretty, I would say, working class aspiring to middle class upbringing in the suburbs of Gordon Head on the island.
What a Canadian sounding town.
Yes.
It's Gordon Head.
Yeah. My dad's name was Bud.
Huh?
How
really?
Canadian is that sounding? That sounds really Canadian.
I knew a Bud from BC.
No way.
He lived in Prince George.
Really?
Yeah. He's like my age. Not
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry.
Like, I think that my dad had substance use issues with alcohol at the end of his life, certainly, and then maybe like during his life. But my mom, I don't think did so much. But her whole family did. Like her mom, her dad, her brothers, for example. So it was kind of like in the genes, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like adjacent to it all, seeing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't like growing up, didn't have the substance use issues in the home or anything. That was never like a hallmark there.
And I found it interesting that you were a bully.
Yeah. Yes.
Was that a coping mechanism, or was it just because of your undiagnosed autism that's you just were socially didn't pick up on social cues?
Yes, that's a nice way of putting it. I think like the more I think about my autism, I think a lot of it definitely is a difficulty or a real challenge developing empathy with people. So like not being able to experience or connect with how I might be making someone feel. Right. You know, even if logically I knew what I was doing was wrong. A lot of my bullying focused around language. So I think I've always had kind of a weird relationship, or I would just say like a difficulty sort of understanding language. So I become quite obsessed with it, which I think is kind of common for people with autism. Like sometimes we have special ways of speaking. We have words that we become really attached to. And that was one of the ways that I bullied people actually was with words. So I would think that something sounded funny when it was really just quite nasty, for example. And
like Fiona's a fatty fart face.
Yes.
You just like the melody of it. Oh my God.
Yeah. If there had been someone called Fiona who had a fat face, I might have definitely I might have said that. Yeah. And the literal thing, I think there's like this weird relationship between language that's kind of metaphorical and language that's literal. Like we don't really I don't really understand the differences, I think. So I don't, the whole thing, I remember them actually in elementary school, like, because I was bullying this one student, and I don't know if it was related to other people, but they did like a circle and were trying to talk to us about, sticks and stones, that kind of thing, and saying, actually, like, your words hurt people. It's true. Like, it actually does hurt people if you say things like that. And I remember that being a kind of aha moment, like, oh, does that, like, it hadn't occurred to me before that there was maybe something that was deeply unkind and wrong. Don't get me, like, I don't want to make it sound like I didn't have awareness, because I think I knew what I was doing was bullying, and I think I knew that it made people upset. But the rest of, like, all the empathy and the maybe I shouldn't do that, it was like there was no satisfaction except in the language, if that makes any sense. Or the fact of, like, being funny to myself or being clever with words, like, that was kind of where it was coming from, I think. Right. I can't believe I'm even laughing about that. But yeah, it's something that, I have a lot of guilt and a lot of remorse about it. And also just kind of, like, checks me when I'm still struggling to be empathic with somebody. It makes me sensitive to other people who aren't empathic as well. I think, like, I know you can learn this. It's not something, like, it might be something that some of us don't have in great quantities and we have to develop it, but yeah, that sort of made me now, like, a strong believer that you can try to develop it, because I absolutely didn't have any when I was younger.
Well, that's amazing that you did have a circle and someone told you that words do hurt, because I remember growing up and it was, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt me. Yeah. And, like, that was, I remember my parents telling me that. It's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Why did people use that as a maxim or like a little proverb or saying?
I don't know.
It's so wrong.
I guess, I mean, I know what they're trying to get at. It's like, I don't know, like when I went through recovery treatment, it was like what other people think of you is none of your business and don't take it personal and all that kind of stuff. But it's so literal, that proverb thing, that it's actually wrong.
It's telling people basically like it could be okay to be assaulted verbally,
right?
Or to accept verbally. Because I wasn't throwing sticks at kids when I was younger. Were you? Or even stones. I don't even think I was throwing stones at people.
No, I was choking and punching people.
Oh, okay.
No, I wasn't. I'm kidding. No, to be honest with you, I was a really, really quiet, shy kid, and then,
and then what happened?
I was funny. Then I became the class clown in like, I don't know, grade 4-ish, and the rest is history. It was like my coping mechanism, and that was my connection with people, or people I was intimidated by, was if I made them laugh, then I might just get through this. And now I'm on meds. Anyway.
You're still very funny. You're still a clown. You might not be in class right now, but you're still a clown.
Well, I still use it. I still use it as a defense mechanism and a weapon at times. Yes. I've had people say like, "Hey, man, I hated you in high school because same thing." It was like I thought I was being funny and whatever. And I was like, "Oh, I was really hurting them." Well, actually, so you said something in your interview in this is actually happening that I picked up on, that was like, you said a teacher told your mother that you have a knack for finding really specific things that people are self-conscious about. And I did too. It was like, I could do imitations of people, and it was like the things that other people did pick up on, but I did. And that was the thing that person was the most self-conscious about. And I thought I was being funny, and it turns out, I was really hurting people's feelings. So, not that I was a bully. I was unaware that I was just how powerful our words are, I guess.
Yeah. And maybe there's, since basically I would say for most of my life, I've been really interested in psychology and psychoanalysis, philosophy, I'm pretty fascinated by humans. So I think I might have felt kind of proud that I felt like I had insight into I think when I think about the satisfaction, like when I heard that story and my mom told me, I was really horrified. Like I thought that, people should have had a real sit down talk with me at that point. And there's no point in a parent being proud of something like that. It wasn't an accomplishment, but
I was like, "Atta girl."
She was.
What?
She thought it was pretty funny. Yeah, because I think I was quite shy and very quiet, and had this kind of she liked to describe this angelic sort of aura about me, and this kind of cute blonde kid about me. And so I think she liked it that I had this nasty streak, so I don't know, maybe because she had been bullied when she was younger. And so she liked that I wasn't being bullied. I got ahead of the curve and was actually bullying other people before it could happen to me, Maybe that's, I don't know really, because I was never able to talk to her about that afterwards. But yeah, I think that there was a kind of almost like a clinical fascination that I had with finding out what makes people tick, what their weaknesses are. But instead of doing that through kindness, I did it through this kind of cruelty. So, I'm really glad that, I don't think enough people said anything to me, but I'm glad I was able to just realize at a certain point that was wrong. And then when I was a teenager, because I was so weird, I had a heck of a time at high school. So I was, really a real outsider, didn't have very many friends, for example. So I really got the karma came back in I do feel like I did my time socially. I don't think there's, in a lot, I feel like I also got a sense of what it felt like to be on the outside of that peer group, when you're with young people and it's so important to you. I think that it became quite clear to me what I had done, so, again, I don't know if that will ever, I don't think anything ever makes up for it. Like, I think about the people that I bullied and I think, like, how did I change their lives, for the worse in a lot of ways. And it's terrible.
You've never reached out to them or anything?
I just feel like that's another invasion of their self that I would be enacting,
You could trigger them or something, or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or they might think it's insincere, like they don't know me, so yeah.
And you might say something that could hurt them again that you don't even realize.
Exactly. That's always the fear.
Like, sorry, I hurt you. I didn't know you were so stupid at the time.
Yes.
No, I don't. So yeah, I'm pretty good at being negative. So then you were kind of dealing with that stuff, and at home, was your mom sick at this point in high school?
Yeah, so my mom was first diagnosed when I was about 14.
With cancer.
That's with cancer, with colon cancer. And so she had the cancer removed at the time. I'm not really good on numbers and dates and things, but I think that pretty much for the next 6 years, I would say, she maybe had a few years where it definitely was in remission, but she became sick sort of. It seems like in my head that she was sick for a good part of my teenagerhood, I would say. Yeah.
And that obviously a big thing, living at home with parents that, because your parents didn't quite get along either, sounded like?
No. My parents themselves, they didn't fight with each other that often. I think they fought with us and they fought about us. About raising us, for example. So there was just a lot of conflict, a lot of fighting, very poor impulse control from everybody's, every person in the household, the four of us, poor impulse control. So it was a very loud, shouty kind of overreacting all the time to everything, but my mom used to always say to me we're just together until you guys are out of the house. We're just staying together for the kids.
She would tell you that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, oh, thank you?
Yeah. I know. I was like, what? Why are you doing that?
It's all right. You don't have to stay together for us.
I feel like I kind of didn't always, I could see that anyway. I could see that there was no love between them and that they had nothing in common, really, in a lot of ways. But I didn't really question it, I think, because I also probably took it with a grain of salt if it was coming from my mom, because she did like to say sort of shocking or outrageous things sometimes. Yeah, she got cancer. Her cancer came back, basically. And that was probably in 92, I think. Or a bit earlier. And so that sort of started maybe a year or longer of a pretty tough battle with cancer. And basically the doctors at one point said, we can't take out anything else. We've taken out all we can of your organs and your innards. So I think that was really tough for her. She, she was young. And I remember when just overhearing her talking to a friend saying how irritated she was, or angry, basically, that she wouldn't get to see all the movies coming out in the future because she loved films so much. So that was kind of her number one gripe. But I think it sort of spoke to everything. She just felt like she was going to miss out on so much. And our relationship wasn't the best. I was living at home at the time. So it was me, my dad, and my mom. And she, was sometimes bedridden. For example, you'd think she was dying, basically, or at the end of her cancer journey. And then she would kind of come back to life, as it were. And yeah, just got progressively sicker and sicker. Her behavior also was, I think with all the medication and everything she was on, it changed a lot the way she looked and the way she acted. She got very impulsive and started, going on these like really random sort of shopping sprees. Her behavior became even more erratic, I think, than it had been in the past. So we had quite a lot of conflict, but at the same time, I guess I was kind of a caretaker as well for her. So my dad would go away sometimes on the weekends and ask me to stay, make sure that I was around on the weekend to take care of her. And so I think at that point, he had already reconnected with somebody from his past who then would become his common law wife. So that's Alana, the other, important person in the story. And I think my mom kind of knew about it. She had an inkling. And I think that's where she got really angry about he couldn't wait until I was dead, basically. Like, why are you doing this now, kind of thing. And I think, for a while I did have that a judgmental view of it, like he was being unfaithful and he was cheating, even though I know that they always slept in the same bed, strangely. And they were always naked, my parents, for some reason, in bed. They slept naked. They slept in the nude, and they would get up in the morning and like walk around totally nude, which you can imagine for teenagers was, we didn't like it very much at all. We thought it was disgusting. But they did obviously have some kind of, like closeness that they did that every night. I thought that was really crazy. So I think it was tough for her when he started going away on these weekends and he had these excuses about like this blacksmithing course or something that he would go on. And then maybe he like might come back with a little piece that he had made or something. But later on, when I put the pieces together, it was kind of obvious what was going on. And she apparently had found out about it and told one of her friends, who then told me that, that confirmed actually that she had known about it. So there was that overlap. And
did you resent your dad a bit for that? Like, why didn't you just wait? Or do you kind of like get it?
You know what?
Like, now that you're an adult, you're like, meh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I kind of sided with my mom when the friend confirmed it to me, because I thought that's a shitty thing to do to somebody when they're in the situation she's in, and she felt like she wouldn't have an opportunity to go and find somebody, obviously, so it was just like the unfairness of it, I think. And I always read it and I didn't know why, but now I feel like I have more perspective on that. I always read it also as he like couldn't imagine being by himself. Like I felt like, I don't know how true that is, but kind of unconsciously, like he needed to be with somebody. Like he needed to have a woman that he was going to do this. Like, I'm the main breadwinner and you can't work and I'll take care of everything. And this sort of like, let's live in this bubble of, non-reality kind of thing with finances and stuff. So
it's like he needed someone to provide for.
Yeah, I feel like it. Like, and I feel like he found somebody also who maybe is somebody he found attractive from his past because they had known each other, but also somebody who was quite a lost person. Somebody who kind of needed, felt a little bit like they needed saving in some way,
Right.
So it was a very different relationship. So that, that's something I'll mention later on. It was very, very different, but it still had the exact same components of he was the one who was going to take care of all the finances. He was going to be responsible for paying all the bills and everything, and be the provider, basically. So when I thought,
hell, I'll marry him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right. He did too. He wasn't very successful at it. Unfortunately.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, he should have tried some other gig in life, shouldn't he? He should have. Yeah.
I can't remember I know we mentioned you were on the spectrum,
Yeah.
but at what age did you kind of get diagnosed?
Yeah, not till recently. So I'm yes,
I thought it was around
pretty
teenager.
No, so I was let's see, I'm gonna be 52 next week. So I was probably 5 years ago now that I got my diagnosis.
Oh, okay. So now knowing that, can you look back at your parents and you think, I wonder if they had some neurodivergence
absolutely.
of some type?
Yeah, I don't know if you're like that as well, but it's when you do have the diagnosis, like it's kind of, I think actually my current partner, he gets really irritated with it, but it's kind of interesting to like retroactively go back and see your behavior and see the people around you, your family members, and you're like, oh my God, that person and that person. And yeah, absolutely. I think both my parents were probably neurodivergent. And I think that made it even harder for them to parent me, you know, and my brother, who are both, you know, maybe a bit more neurodivergent than them. I think it was really, really challenging for them, you know? Mm-hmm. So absolutely.
Yeah, I know a lot of parents that are neurodivergent and their kids are neurodivergent, and it is quite the dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
But at least the parents know they have ADHD or are on the spectrum, but to go around, you know, living life. Well, I've done it for 40 some years myself. Yeah. I diagnosed and untreated.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is kind of difficult.
It's really something. I remember my mom, I always thought this was a funny story, but she'd like to tell us that apparently in primary school back in the day, the teachers used to tie her to the desk with ropes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I only know your mother from what you tell me, but I would say that's she's up there on the neurodivergent scale.
Too fidgety, I guess. I don't know. I'm glad they stopped doing that to kids.
So eventually your mother does pass.
Yeah.
Your father marries?
No.
Remarries or just...
Yeah, he never married his... They were just common law partners. So my mom died in August. And at the time I was living with some friends on the island. So I was still around. But he came to us maybe in November, my brother and I. And I remember going on a walk with him and him telling me that he had reconnected with this woman in his past who had changed her name. So she had a new name. And that they were an item and that he was actually going to move to the interior of BC to be with her. So he was going to sell his business on the island. And he was going to go live in the interior with her. So it was pretty fast. And that's when I think I kind of thought, oh, those other signs, like there was overlap, you know, it was like made it really, really obvious. Also the location of where these blacksmithing things were, and then the location of, it was like, okay, I get that now. So he announced that, you know, they're going to sell the childhood home and all that kind of stuff. And my brother, I think, was still living with him at the time. So yeah, he was basically gonna move away, right, pretty soon after my mom passed. And then we went out for Japanese food on the island with his partner, Alana, and met her for the first time. So that was
What'd you order?
I think I had, I remember actually, I had some kind of like deep fried tofu with this like nice sesame sauce that was on it. I remember.
It's funny the things we remember.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's funny the things. That's something I could remember. This awkward meal like it was yesterday because it was awkward.
Yeah. So that was a lot of new normals for you in a short period of time.
Yes.
You no longer have a mother, child at home.
Yeah.
Your father, you have a new stepmother, and your dad lives away from you. Yeah.
And I was probably 20 or 21. So, I mean, you know, technically speaking, I was an adult and everything. So that part didn't seem very abnormal. But I think where it was clear to me that there was something like a bit off about them together and their boundaries and maybe like the healthiness of their relationship, etc., was that Christmas, he told us that Alana did not want us to, she just wanted to have Christmas, the two of them and the animals. So they wanted their first Christmas to be together. And my mom was obsessed with Christmas. She was one of those, I now don't like Christmas because of how obsessed she was with it. I had my fill, and she was really over the top with it. So Christmas was, in my mind at least, kind of important, and in my brother's mind. And then I found myself actually at my friend's house with nowhere to go because my friend's sister said she also just wanted Christmas with family. So I had to call around or ask people. It was really embarrassing. I remember, because I was way more socially awkward than I am now, like having this conversation. I probably wouldn't.
Even worse?
Yes.
Sorry. Just being a smart ass.
It's true. I was real, I was pretty socially awkward. I did have friends and stuff. That was like an autistic person's nightmare. Like, oh my God, how am I going to find something to do for Christmas? Because everyone's like with their families and stuff. And this person has already said they don't want me with them, and their family doesn't want me with them. So what the heck am I supposed to do? So I remember that being quite stressful.
Good Lord.
And
yeah, it's your first Christmas without your mom.
Yeah.
And you're basically hitchhiking, and whoever will pick you up for Christmas.
I know. Yeah, I should have done that.
Dang.
Yeah, I should have.
And you're still grieving, I'm assuming. And
yeah. It's hard. It's it still can be a tough time. So so great. My one best childhood friend, her and her mom took me in, let me hang out with them. So that, that was really nice of them. And then my brother, he just ended up, going out for Chinese food, I think, with another local orphan. So one or two local orphans who had nowhere to go, so.
What did he order?
That I don't know.
No.
I don't remember. I don't think I ever asked. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's fair. Again, I was just being a smart ass.
But I think he tried to think of it as, it's a tradition in North America, right? Some people go for Chinese food for Christmas.
Yeah, it's like a Christmas story.
Exactly.
That
he loved that movie.
Yeah.
So I think he did do that, but I guess that's how that kind of helped justify it a little bit for him. But yeah, so that was sort of part of our introduction. And then I didn't go and actually visit them in the interior BC until maybe a few months after that. So then I got to see what their life was like, etc. And thus began my integration into the craziness that was my dad and his partner.
Introducing the timely children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. The visually stunning book is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Sometimes Daddy Cries is getting rave reviews from parents and mental health professionals alike. One critic has stated, "This is a timely and important book that will help countless fathers and sons broach the subject of depression." An Amazon customer commented, "An excellent book to open up a conversation with a young child about depression in a parent. Sometimes Daddy Cries is available in hardcover and paperback on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com.
One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can? Integration isn't like you ended up living with them? Or?
No, just mentally trying to come to terms with what was going on there. So I think all of us in some respect were a hot mess at that time, Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Most people at 20, 21 years old are kind of a hot mess of sorts. But so when you visited them, were you like, was it peculiar? Were you like, what is happening here? Or did you seem like, oh, they seem content and this is nice?
Yeah, I think it always felt weird. And also my dad probably shouldn't have cross-talked with me. Like sometimes he would cross-talk. He told me, for example, that she didn't like that he had a picture of my mom in his wallet. So she got jealous about that and she put a picture of her rabbit in her wallet. Because she had this one house rabbit who was like her closest pet, I would say. And
do you think she ever hugged it?
Yeah, she got kisses from the rabbit.
Bunny hugs?
And she got bunny hugs, yeah. Oh,
see where I'm going?
He was, I
care
know.
if she kissed it.
I know. What?
I don't care if she kissed it. I just want to know if she hugged it.
I think I don't think the bunny hugged her. They can't do that with those little legs at the front. But they
okay, that's fair.
They can mess you up with the back ones though, but yeah,
they sure can, yeah.
Front ones. Yeah.
So was that like a spite thing? If you're gonna have a picture of your ex-wife, I'm gonna have or not ex-wife, I guess. Dead
wife, I know, yeah.
I don't know what the term is,
yeah.
but I'm gonna have a rabbit.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
There were a few things going on in the relationship like that. I think it was she didn't
Seems healthy.
I never really so that's my point in all this to give context. There were some dynamics I would say that were like not that early on I saw, I guess you'd say red flags. So yeah, there were things like that. The finance thing from the beginning was really strange as well. So I remember her confronting me, asking me, telling me that she had seen like a receipt for something in his clothing when she was washing his clothes. And, that there was always some issue about her not knowing what the finances were. And their financial situation. So to explain, my dad, he was a business owner on the island. I don't think he was a particularly like super successful one because he always had problems with, allowing us to live beyond our means and not managing the money and those sorts of things. So he always had money issues.
Sounds neurodivergent.
Yeah, absolutely right. ADHD tax. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a whole other story that I could go into, but I suffer from that. It's a constant battle, and it's really,
I hear that.
Yeah, it's really a constant battle. So he made those impulsive decisions. He thought, oh, I'm going to sell my business and get the payout over the period of a year, move to the interior of British Columbia. And, my partner's dream is to have a mail order African violet business. African violets in the middle of the interior. So just put two and two together. So giant greenhouse was built. Yeah. Giant greenhouse was built with the finances of selling the home and the business. And you can imagine what it's like. These are kind of tropical flowers from what little I know of them. I just remember being in the greenhouse. It was very humid. It was very hot. You do have hot weather in the interior BC, but there's a lot of time where you have to pay for that kind of, upkeep of those flowers and stuff. Yeah. And you're not going to make a lot on your investment if you're doing mail order back in the day, mail ordering little plants, basically. So, so that was something that was her preoccupation. And then he was sort of doing odd jobs at that point. She told me early on that he had, forbade her to work, apparently. Said, you're not allowed to work. And I do remember my mom saying that as well, that he didn't want my mom to have a job. When they first met, she was a teacher, but I think, or later on she became a teacher, but I think once, we were born and stuff, he wasn't always very supportive of women going into the workplace. And so his partner, Alana, I think she was in her early 40s and she was retired. Like she was not going back to work. So it was just him, not having like a future steady source of income, a new home, a lot of animals on the farm that were pets. So like llamas, goats, chickens.
Hobby farm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I see. Okay.
Absolutely. So
did she run the greenhouse business? Violet thing?
Yeah. So she did.
Okay.
Yeah. So she did that. It was back in the day when, you know, they even had a website going and things like that. But I mean,
so she worked, but not
it really, I mean,
for somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly I can't imagine that brought in more than, you know, a couple hundred a month or something, honly.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it
really.
was, yeah. And the fridge was always kind of striking to me. Like, it was so full of food, but she was a brilliant cook and she loved food. She was a real foodie. But the fridge was always full of the most expensive food that you could get. Like, if it was olives, it was always like the best olives, and they were always like really stocked up on, like, it was like a prepper party or something for like a luxurious meal. It was really a bit over the top. So pretty, you know, early on that respect, it was obvious they were also living above their means, you know, at that point. And then I kind of, you know, went on and lived my life, and as you tend to do with ADHD, jumped around from this schooling program to that schooling program and jumped around the country and stuff. But kept in touch with him and, you know, visited them from time to time. Eventually he, you know, wasn't getting paid from the business because the proceeds had stopped. And that's when he started definitely having issues. So at one point I got an inheritance because my mom's mom had passed away. So I got an inheritance and he started asking me for money for that.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was obvious that, like, pretty early on, I mean, it was fine with me because I would sometimes hit him up for money as well, like if I was in a bind, but yeah, now my brain has stopped. My memories are starting as my memories get. Okay. It's like a black hole. Like I like to think of the event as kind of a black hole because I mean
the event horizon.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it totally is. Because with my mom's death, like I can remember the before, the after. Like everything is in such crystal clear detail. You know, like I can remember them like wheeling her out in the hospital gurney when she had died and everything, but I can't with my dad. Like as we get closer, like it's just everything. Yeah, kind of the information just goes gets stuck in there.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, at one point you find yourself. Is it going to school in Paris?
Yeah, so I was doing a PhD that I never finished. I was doing a PhD at Western in London, Ontario, at Western University. Ah,
okay.
So, and I heard about this scholarship that you could do research for your PhD and travel. So that would have been in 2004-ish, I think. And yeah, I said, great, I'm going to go to Paris and I'd finished my coursework. I'm going to go do my exams and write my PhD. And Paris is the place to be because I was studying French psychoanalytic theory at the time. So yeah.
Doesn't everyone?
I know. Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Everyone jumped on that bandwagon back in the early 2000s. Oh, so yeah. So I moved over there, suddenly, I guess it was in February. It would have been at the end of February. And I don't remember the details of this, but I feel like I called my brother just sort of to catch up. And it was coincidentally, he had just found out, someone had just called him and said, you know, that Dad's dead. And then it came out that he killed his partner, Alana. And their one dog. So the one dog that was like, you know, they had other dogs. They had like 3 dogs at the time and stuff, but this was the dog that they had, you know, got as a puppy. And I guess it was kind of like seen as like a child replacement for them, you know. And I'm not sure, but I think that his reasoning was this dog could not live without us. This dog would be so devastated, kind of thing. Because the other dogs, you know, well, that's part of the story as well. But he meticulously planned out the scene in advance because he had known some of the local law enforcement officers locally and, like, obviously felt a lot of responsibility and guilt, I would imagine. He didn't want people, you know, to just walk in on this. So he had totally prepped the scene. You know, they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but he'd put signs on the road. call 911, that kind of thing. And then on the door, it said, do not enter, call 911. I think maybe he closed the door to the bedroom where he actually, did it. And that also had a sign on there, do not come in or something. He had 2 standard poodles, and he left the minivan outside and left the doors open for them to go in and left some food and water. But I guess the idea was that he knew eventually they would start to wander because they would be hungry. So that's what happened. They went, to the neighbor's property at a certain point, and then the neighbors were like, what are about Alana's dogs doing here? So they went over and saw these signs and everything, and then called the police.
Yeah, it must have been a pretty shocking, like you're expecting your brother to be like, yeah, man, school sucks, and, dad, and you get hit with this. What was your initial reaction?
I mean, I don't think that I think when you receive news like that, I don't think you really have a reaction. It really does feel like a black hole in the sense that like, all emotion, all sort of your brain trying to process something, it just kind of shuts down, I think. Like, I think your brain just gets it, like in any kind of traumatizing situation or a situation that is like too freaky for you to comprehend, it just kind of shuts down. And I think that's how, like, I mean, of course, I was devastated, and I just felt like it's like being punched in the stomach, or the air is, kind of taken out of your lungs.
It must have been, I mean, just knowing that he took his own life would have been just as devastating and shocking, but then to process that he also took the dog's life and his partner's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's a whole other layer of what the hell.
Yeah. I think at first I would have heard that, and then I don't know how the information began to trickle in, because that I have absolutely no recollection of sort of how I communicated with family members or my brother, or how I found things out. I would have imagined it would have been by email, maybe some telephone.
So maybe you dissociated a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, I would say so. And also weirdly, like my family is quite dissociated as well. I mean, I think before this trauma, there was already like a fracturing and, a dissociation between people in the family. So those bonds weren't very strong. Like the network there wasn't very strong in a lot of ways, And so communicating to each other in like a caring way, or anybody like reaching out to me, like, how are you doing? Like, I think also because of the trauma, I mean, it's not like my grandmother, who I was really close to, it's not like she would be so devastated as well. Like, she wouldn't be able to really cope and give me a call and say like, how are you doing? And, but we already weren't that kind of family. And so that just definitely wasn't going to happen after that kind of event,
So that grandmother, was that your mom's mom?
No, my dad's mom. Yeah, I was really close.
So his mother was still around?
Yeah, I was really close. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been difficult as a mother, too, to not just lose a child, but, my child also took someone's life. And man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It was a lot for my grandma, I think everybody's line about it was, that he wasn't himself. Like, they saw it as mental health, but more like a mental health where he wasn't himself. Whereas I felt like it was completely consistent with his character in some ways. He had never shown any like violence towards women, or it wasn't, that did come out of the blue. But when I thought about him, like putting on this facade all the time of being this perfect provider and breadwinner, and that sort of like toxic, like, I'm the man kind of, stuff that still goes on today, for example. It made a lot of sense for me what he did. But also he wrote letters for a bunch of us. So he wrote me a letter, my brother a letter, my grandma a letter, one of his brothers, so one of my uncles, and one of his sisters, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe not. So there was already this kind of, some people were offended in the family, for example, that they didn't get a letter. Offended and hurt, hurt and offended. I never actually got the letter itself in my hands. I had it by email, and then like I printed it out at one point, I think. Part of his preparing the scene, he actually signed a confession for the police so that they wouldn't have to do an investigation. And then he wrote a few letters as well. I think he also wrote like just a general suicide note. He really over-prepared it. Got general suicide note and then all these different pieces of paper. But yeah, that part, that is tough. Like, I think I was the last person to speak to him too, you know?
Really?
When I think about it, I think I was the last person who spoke to him. But basically what happened is he had gone bankrupt a bunch of times, and they, as he explained it in the letter, basically that the Revenue Canada, they were going to come and take the house, for example. So they were going to take, like, every asset was going to be taken away. So, yeah.
It sounds like to me, like, maybe, I mean, I'm just theorizing maybe what his thought process.
Yeah.
So he's the provider. He's quickly realizing that, okay, I'm no longer actually providing, I'm making matters worse. And whether it's a masculine thing at the time, he's probably felt shame. So then it was almost like a mercy thing. He's like, well, I've failed my partner. I failed me.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of spousal homicide, but quite often it's, you know, out of rage or violence or whatever. And this doesn't sound like it was that. It was like he was like, I failed you, and it's almost like a mercy killing.
Yeah.
Or something.
I think that's. Yeah, I was lucky to have a few, like in France, they, the healthcare service there, they pay for psychiatrists, even like talk therapy with psychiatrists. So I had psychiatrists, psychoanalysts when I was there. Very good. And the one guy who was really good, he said that it's called an altruistic suicide. So it's, an altruistic murder-suicide or altruistic murder is when somebody, thinks that they're putting someone out of their misery, basically, or they're protecting them from something. And so my dad did make the decision, and it said in the letter to me that, you know, she can't live without her farm and her animals and her African violets. Like, she couldn't live and go get a job somewhere and just carry on her life if all this went away, you know, regardless of whether he was there or not. Like, it was really about the things and the place and everything, you know, which was so, obviously that's a kind of mental illness, if that's how you see people in life and everything. But, you know, that's how kind of brainwashed he was by his own ideology, I think.
And then the dog too, like, it's just that dog.
That, I think that's even more arrogant, because the dog never talked to you. Like, if you talk to the dog and say, like, how would you feel about having new owners? You know, like, it's not like he ever talked to the dog about that. Some people did mention, and it's something we don't really know about, that they might have had conversations. What if?
With the dog?
No. No, sorry. Oh. I've moved on. The dog.
They sat down, had some coffee.
Yeah.
Listen, Dave, I can't live without you, man.
Yeah. You're take you with me. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm such a smartass. Like, this is like one of the most serious, dark conversations that I hear.
No,
I'm cracking.
You know what? Like, I mean, again, I'm always uncomfortable kind of like talking or laughing or even like exploring it is still difficult for me, because he did take someone's life.
Right.
You know,
right.
So that's always like such a moral like conundrum for me. But at the same time, I do think that those two had really like a joint mental illness. You know, I think there's that thing that you might have heard of, folie à deux. You know, I think
I don't know what you're talking about.
Me, myself, and I.
It's like codependency in a way or something.
Yeah, like a kind of, but a shared delusion. So I think that they did have a shared delusion.
Your dad and the dog?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No. That dog, I wish that dog had been able to talk, because the dog probably could have talked some sense into those two.
Right.
You know?
He's like, as long as someone's feeding me, I'll be happy. Don't worry about me.
Yeah. But no, seriously, if I get it, like I have rescue animals at home right now, and I over provide for them sometimes when I can't afford to. You know, I do understand that, but they had so much that they couldn't provide for and that they couldn't afford. It wasn't just like...
It's like they were trying to fill a hole of something.
Well, I think when they met, it was kind of like, okay, you know, for her, like, your previous life didn't go well. And then for him, my previous life and love story didn't go well either. Now we found each other. Let's build our dream life, but without planning the money part of it, I think. Right. It's like, let's get the dream life first, and the money stuff will always come. But he had already gone bankrupt once or twice. Like, it wasn't like he was a stranger to bankruptcy. Like, he knew what it was like when, you know, when businesses aren't going well. So... and she, you know, she was an intelligent woman as well. She was a geriatric nurse, and she'd done that for a long time. She was smart, but together, you know, it was kind of funny watching them as well, because my dad had always been this really like gruff, like kind of a bit nasty to people. Like, he had a wicked sense of humor, but he was super critical, like, and sarcastic all the time. And when my mom and him were together, like, he would never go to a movie with her. You know, she loved movies, and he would never go to the cinema with her or go to dinner.
You'd have to put clothes on.
Well, that was just in the morning that they were naked.
Oh, okay.
And in bed. They weren't nudists. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were doing, honestly. I'll never figure that out.
Sorry, I just love a good throwback. So.
I love that throwback because it's so weird. It served me well, though, because I was for a time a sculptor. So I had to do like a lot of life drawing classes, and I had a lot of nudes in my life. So it actually was good because I wasn't squeamish at that point.
Right.
So used to it. Yeah.
Sorry, what you were talking about. How your dad was gruff with your mom, but in this relationship was, I'm assuming, different. Yeah,
the two of them together, like, suddenly he was going on about the local rep theater, how they had like old films and new films, and he was always like renting films. He also like had taken my entire classical music CD collection. I used to be really into classical music when I was a teen. It was my rebellion to be weird. And he started loving classical music and art. He had like taken some of my prints and things and put it up in the house. He was suddenly into like literature again, and that he was always like, oh, lovey-dovey, sweetie to Alana, like always lovey-dovey, and they were always like touching each other and cuddles and all that kind of stuff, you know. Like, it was really sweet. Like, they clearly loved each other.
Do you think it was sincere?
Yeah, I do.
Like, the music and the art and everything was sincere?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
he had that's what's kind of sad, is because he had like a new lease on life. I think he had a certain freedom without the kids and without that mold of being with my mom, you know, and feeling like this heritage of like, I have to provide for the family, yada, yada. He had this freedom, but then he just fell right back into it by telling her that she couldn't work and not sharing the finances with her and not, you know, opening up about it and stuff.
Have you ever talked to her family at all? Like, no. I'm assuming they must have resentments. It must be a whole other perspective.
Man, that is just the weirdest story. So I think, that's how I can say also, like, I know that she had some unresolved issues or mental health issues or something. When I say folie à deux, like, I'm not really using it lightly. You know, I think the two of them really had some issues. I think they might have had substance use issues as well, because they were always downing a bottle or two of wine, you know. Very like red-faced and always drinking and getting really jolly and stuff. There was definitely something going on there. And her family, for some reason, her parents weren't alive anymore, but her family, like, they just didn't talk. She just hated her siblings, and her siblings kind of hated her. And when, so, you know, when she was killed, basically, I think maybe her brother and maybe a sister or something traveled to the interior BC, but there was no funeral or anything. Also, people didn't want to pay for proper cremation. So I think this is what I heard. So the person, I guess, at the cremation place cremated them together and mixed their ashes.
2-for-1 deal.
Yeah. And so I think they scattered some of the ashes on the farm, but her family didn't ask to have them. She has no gravestone anywhere. Wow. My dad also doesn't have any gravestone. Yeah, that always blows my mind. And it doesn't sit right with me that she also doesn't have a place of remembrance and that nobody even wanted one for her, Like that just kind of outrages me a little bit. And I think
it's sad.
It's sad, and it's also like I can't really blame her for all the kind of shitty things she did to me, because she did. You wouldn't want to get into the details of it, like not abusive or anything, but she was pretty shitty to me sometimes, and made things difficult for my dad and stuff. I didn't even live at home. Like, I don't know what she was so jealous about either. Like, it's not like I was taking lots of his attention, because I really wasn't. I was off doing my own thing, but now I do get where both of them were coming from, I think.
You know what? It kind of sounds like, I know, like I've been in addiction treatments and I've been in the psych ward before and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know people that have like met in those places and dated, and it's a disaster. No, that like it's just a time bomb waiting to go off, and it's that's what it kind of sounds like. It's like they maybe bonded, like trauma bonded or something, and then it was like two very unhealthy people are like bringing out the worst of each other, and they think they're doing good for each other, but it's actually the rest of the world's looking at it going, this isn't good.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's true. That's a good point, because I think my mom and my dad got together because they trauma bonded, and then so it makes sense that if that's his sort of understanding of a relationship, that he would do it again, but he would tell himself this time it's different because it's love and rainbows and lovey-dovey, sweetie, we like all the same things, cuddly, warm and cuddly. Like, it's true. He was probably kind of, deluding himself in that sense as well. Yeah.
Speaking of nephews, he mentioned them in the note.
Yes. So, I have, my brother has 2 sons, twins, my twin nephews, and my niece. And my dad, one of the things he said in the note was, please explain them. Explain me was a weird grammatical structure. He said, explain me to them. He didn't say, explain what I did to them. Please explain me to the kids. Yeah, that I think it's something that I'm kind of coming to terms with now, I would say. It really kind of, it's one of the things in the letter that kind of really got to me and sort of made me maybe a bit angry. Because he said all throughout the letter as well, he said, you would understand. I wish I could call you and talk to you. You're the only person who would understand what I'm about to do. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Like I do always look at every side of the equation. I like thinking about things in a complex way. I have the mental health issues experience and
empathy
everything.
Maybe too. Did you have that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was certainly better than I was in elementary school when I was a boy. Yeah, I definitely had developed more empathy, I think, then. And and I think because, I'm not going to lie, like I do, because I had, for such a long time, had a lot of suicidal ideation. I did there was a split second where my brain said like, oh, now I can't do that. Because
I don't mean to laugh.
What would happen to the... I know, but that's what it was like. It was like, kind of like, not really like he beat me to it, but it was kind of like, oh, well, now, like, if I want to do that sometime as an out, right? Like, what about my family members, for example? They've already gone through it once.
Oh,
it's not something... it's
I thought
already
like an ego thing, like, oh, I was gonna do that. He took my curtain call,
Yeah, culture. Oh, I was gonna make another joke, and
do it.
Was gonna come out wrong. He called shotgun.
Oh my god!
Sorry, Dad. He would like that. Probably.
I don't think you mentioned that, but he used a shotgun. Right. Oh my God. Oh.
I think he had a pistol and a shotgun. Where's he getting these guns? Why did my dad have a shotgun?
Beats me.
I thought he was out deer hunting. Deer hunting or something. Deer with a
shotgun?
You know? I don't even know. Yeah, what do you do with shotgun? I don't even know. Usually. Oh, of course. Yeah, he definitely wasn't shooting birds. I know that for a fact. But yeah, so that was in the letter that I was supposed to
and
explain.
This is fascinating. We had to record this over a couple meetings, but one of the reasons we had to do it was because you were emotionally drained the other day because you finally had that conversation with one of your nephews after 20 some years.
I started it. I think it's just the beginning.
Just tell them to listen to the podcast.
Yes, I would like to. I would like to. I kind of feel bad with stuff like that. That like I don't want people to say to people like, "Oh, listen to me. I'm on a podcast," but or just listen to the podcast and then don't ever talk to them again, But yeah, I was, I don't know what I was thinking otherwise, but I was a bit shocked that nobody else has talked to him about it.
As a parent, I would feel like they would have questions. To me, or and I'd be like, talk to your aunt. Not that I'm judging your brother or anything, but
well, no, me neither. So apparently, my brother, I can that didn't shock me to think that he wouldn't talk about it. Yeah, that didn't shock me at all. But his my nephews, their mom, I'm really close to, and I'm gonna ask her about it because it's, I think she might be feeling how I feel as well. Like, whose job is it to talk about it? Like, I think, it was interesting actually when the last time I was back home about a year ago and I was hanging out with a friend of mine, whose dad had been in the Korean War. His dad was American. And he was talking about, he's an artist and a poet, and he's doing this work around his dad's writings about the war. And he was talking about like how trauma is inherited, but like not necessarily just in the way that we act, like a nurture way, but like it's actually like a nature
like
way.
In our DNA.
Like it changed. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting. That's a thing. So I understand that like when something like what my dad did happens, it changes everybody in that vicinity, like it changes. So even when I was talking to my, or actually when I did the podcast with Wit and I realized like, I don't know how to talk about this. Like I thought that I was articulate about it. I thought that I had already told people about it. And I realized like, I don't talk about it at all, really. And how difficult it is to talk about it. And that burden as well of like, well, somebody's got to talk about it because it's already in us. Like it's already affecting all of our lives. And you can see that, and we might behind each other's back say, okay, I went through this major trauma. My brother went through this major trauma. That's why he's like that. That's why I'm like that. And I'll bring it up sometimes as like, not an excuse, but a reasoning. Like, well, I'm like this because of this, but. Out
loud or just in your head?
I'll do it out loud sometimes. Yeah. I do think, one thing that I really dislike about myself is, I've always been kind of a bit of a hard-edged type person. Like, I'm not super soft and cuddly. And so I've been told many times, not very bunny huggy, I guess. But since that time, like, it's really hard for me to have empathy for people who haven't experienced trauma. Like even small bits of trauma, like the idea of privilege, people who are privileged and complain, and people, it's really tough for me. Like I know that everything is relative, logically I know that people have their own challenges, but at the same time, yes, sometimes I'll bring that out. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you don't even know.
Privileged so-and-so. Well, in a way, like I know I've kind of had that feeling in the past too, but in a way, that's almost their trauma. It's like they're so sheltered. They're so naive.
Good point.
It's like, it's almost, you almost have to feel empathy for them that their life is so perfect that when something does happen, how the hell are they going to manage?
Yeah. Because it's true. I don't think any of us, I mean, it's rare that you really go through life unscathed entirely, So yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I hadn't thought of that. I like that. Like, I would have never imagined, I like to talk about mental health things, and it's obviously like something that I've studied and I'm interested in, and I'm open-minded. But yeah, it's changed. I'm not able to really talk about it properly, but not yet. I think, like, thanks to you and thanks to Wit as well, like, I think this has really given me a chance to talk about it, because I do think it's important. I don't want, like, any other family to go through that. And I know that society has changed a lot in the way that we see the roles of men and women, So
and even trauma.
Just a gender. And trauma, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's true. It could be like just a general story, and I think I really like what my friend is, how he approaches like his intergenerational trauma and stuff with his art and everything. I think that's really clever, because it's probably not easy, but it seems a bit easier to do than just like it's so scary to just talk to somebody, like telling a little bit to my nephew the other day. Like, it's just scary because I think I don't have the right to talk about that. Like, I'm going to always put a spin on it, however I talk about it.
What do you mean you don't have a right? Because it's not your story, it's your dad's story, or?
Yeah.
Well, tell your story, not his story then, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Yeah. But I do have, I mean, it's interesting because actually, yes, I do have, as you can tell, I've just taken up all this time telling you about it. I do have opinions about them and how it sort of ended up and stuff, but I also kind of feel like I shouldn't tell someone else's story, but maybe I should try. That would be healing, or, if there's some block there, maybe it's for a reason. I don't know.
Well, and as they say in AA, you're only an expert of your story. So they say never to give advice.
Yeah.
You just tell your story and give your, so you definitely have a story. Like it's not your dad's story. I mean, you're in this story. This is, you're a part of it. I mean, you're not, his story is your story, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing I could see maybe the benefit now. Like, I think in the past I thought it doesn't matter.
Well, and I mean, kind of the point of the podcast, this podcast in a way, is when people share, other people can relate, then they don't feel alone.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be, even if it's not, they won't relate to every detail of your story. There's bits of it that they can relate to, and it helps people to hear your story, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
People, but just the fact of talking, like that's where the whole idea of talk therapy comes from. And when you put this kind of frame around it, like it's really meaningful what you're doing, I think. So
well, thank you.
It's helped me a lot, certainly, and I wouldn't be able to, if I hadn't listened to your podcasts already with people, I would be much less at ease, I think, talking about it and stuff, but you make it easy, actually.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. I try.
Weirdly, you're the trauma whisperer. PTSD whisperer. I guess people have things they need to talk about.
But why me?
That they don't even know. You're a trauma whisperer.
I guess. I'm a witch. I'm non-intimidating, I think. It's like, that guy's too goofy looking to be intimidating, so I'll tell him whatever he wants to know.
Oh.
Interesting.
I like Trauma Whisperer. I like it.
Maybe I'll change the name of the podcast. Thank you so much, Andrea. She and I got along really well. We corresponded back and forth for quite a while, actually. It was nice to actually sit and record, and we did it over a couple stints, so thanks for that. And unfortunately, there's no video for this one. I don't know what happened. Video is such a pain in my ass, so unfortunately, this one isn't on YouTube except in audio form. And honestly, I'm really thinking about saying to hell with YouTube and video because it is just the bane of my existence. Hey, why don't you do yourself a favor, probably more me a favor, by checking out my website, www.bunnyhugspodcast.com, and all my social media links are there. Public speaking links, link to my children's books, Sometimes Daddy Cries, and a link to buy me a coffee. If you are so inclined, that would be absolutely amazing of you to buy me a coffee or some merch. Oh yeah, there's merch there too. I forgot about that. And if you have about 10 seconds, well, do you mind just rating and reviewing the podcast on iMusic or Apple Music or iPodcasts, Apple Podcasts, and or sharing, or just tell somebody about the podcast. That would be incredibly appreciated. Anyway, thank you for listening, and until next time, please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.